Hello gentlemen. Today we'll be doing a spring lab. So what we're going to investigate are what is the relationship between the force applied to a spring and how much it stretches. So you're going to have two springs, one of them pretty stretchable, pretty easily stretched, another one a little bit stiffer. And what we're going to do is we're going to apply a force to them by hanging some mass from the spring, which will cause gravity force to be applied to the mass. The spring, in order to prevent the mass from falling down too far, from continuing to accelerate downward, will exert spring force back upward on that mass. So we're going to cause the spring to exert spring force. And we know exactly how much it is because we can calculate we can measure the mass and calculate the gravity force, which should be equal to the spring force. In order to determine the relationship between the amount of spring force and the amount the spring stretches, we need to know how much did it stretch, which means we need to know what the unstretched length of the spring is. Now this step is important. You have to actually know how long the spring is when it's not stretched in order to calculate how long it is when it is stretched. So this spring looks like it's about 10.2 centimeters when it's unstretched. And I was measuring just from the dowel down to the bottom of the hook here. It doesn't much matter exactly where you choose as long as it's on the bottom somewhere and you stay consistent through the entire procedure. So if it's 10.2 centimeters unstretched and I put 10 grams of mass, the hanger itself is 5 grams, another 5 grams, I'm going to put 10 grams of mass on here. And when I do that, it stretches by a total, it stretches down to 13.2 centimeters. So the total stretch was 3 centimeters. It stretched from 10.2 to 13.2 centimeters. So you measure that, and we're going to record in Logger Pro a force, a spring force column, and a stretch column. You'll record those two amounts. You'll have to calculate how much spring force there is by taking the mass and calculating how much gravity force there is. And you'll have to calculate how much stretch there is by subtracting the original unstretched length of the spring. Finally, a couple notes about the lab. Please don't stretch the springs too much, about 2 to 2.5 times their length. Anything more than that will damage the springs, so please don't do that. The stiffer spring you can put more weight on because it doesn't stretch as much. In order to do the lab for that one, you've got also a large mass set for the stiffer spring. Since we're going to be measuring two different springs, I'd like you to graph them both on the same graph. So what you'll need to do is create a new data set. In order to do that, you'll make your first data set for your one spring, and then once you've done that, you can go to Data, down to New Data Set, and that'll create all the same columns that you had for the first data set. You can label it Spring 2, Bigger Spring, whatever you want to call it, and record your data there. That's it. I'll see you tomorrow.